Oh, I love watching you listening. Oh, thank you for saying that. So, without further ado, let's talk about today's moral of the story. Once upon a time, in a far off and magical land, there lived a great king. And one day, this king was being carried. This was long before the days of horse drawn carriages or cars. And so the kings would travel in a way that was in that, that kind of covered, I don't know what the hell you call it, covered thing where people would carry each end, and then there would be the thing in the middle that would be covered in, what can we call that? The covered caravan. If somebody knows what the actual name of it is, please let me know. The covered caravan, and the king's traveling through the city streets in the covered caravan, and happens to peer out the window. Carriage. Is it a carriage, even if it's not pulled by horses? A covered caravan carriage. And the king is traveling through the city streets and happens to peer out the window, through the curtains, and sees this evidently looks like a very poor person, perhaps a beggar, sitting on the street corner with a small bowl, asking for change. And the king was shocked to see a smile across this, a very toothless smile across this man's face. And the king had that image, and as he went on, the king thought about that. The next day, the king's traveling through town and happens upon the same route, and sure enough, the same person's there, smiling that toothless smile and seeming like not a care in the world. And the image stuck with the king this time, and the king started to get a little curious. And so several days later, when the king had to go out and do some of the kingly duties, the king made it a point to have his caravan take him that route to see if the beggar person was still there. Well, sure enough, he was, and he still looked happy. He still looked smiley, and he seemed like he was radiating this warmth, and it perked the king's curiosity even more so. The king kind of carried on with this pattern for several days, making sure any sort of appointments he had throughout his kingdom or meetings would always go by the same route, and sure as enough could be, that man was always there. Well, one day the king's curiosity gets the absolute best of him, and he has to know. He has to know what's going on. And so when the royal caravan happens upon the same place where the man's sitting with his bowl outstretched and his smile on his face, the king gets out and says, I must know, are you happy? And the man looks up at the king and says, well, yes, sire, I am. And the king says, well, how? Why? Are you rich? And the man looks up at the king and says, well, no, sire, I'm not rich. All I own is what you see right here. And the king says, well, do you have food? Do you have plenty to eat, to drink? And the man looks up at the king and says, well, no, sire. I might be able to pick something up over the course of the day if somebody finds it in their heart to share something with me, but no, what you see is what I have. And the king says, well, what about family, friends? Do you have plenty of those? There must be people out there who love you, who care about you. The man looks up at the king and says, no, sire, I no family nor friends that I can think of. And the king says, well, you must have your health, right? Are you healthy? Are you the spitting image of good health? And the man looks up at the king and smiles a little bit bigger. And he says, well, not particularly, sire. You can see my teeth are gone, and sitting out here in this cold weather is especially hard on my bones and whatnot, and makes it a little tougher to walk, but no, sire, not particularly good health. And the king, almost flabbergasted at this point, looks at the man and says, well, I don't understand. I have all those things. I have money. I have plenty of food for my belly. I have my health. I have friends. I have family. But I'm not happy. I want what you have. What's your secret? And the man takes a deep breath and looks up at the king and he says, well, sire, this is what I believe. I firmly believe that God never sends me any more challenges than that I can handle. Not only that, sire, but I believe that those challenges that God sends me, God sends them to me because there's a reason behind it. That reason is because this is where I'm supposed to learn, I'm supposed to grow from at this time in my life. And while I'm not perfect at it, I don't smile all the time, I do my best to put on a smile and receive those messages because I happen to think what a beautiful thing it is that I have God communicating with me and letting me know that there's some important lessons that God wants me to learn. And while I may not always know how to handle it right away, what I do have from it is I have a target on the horizon, something to aim for, something that I know that I'm supposed to work towards at this time in my life. And the king was kind of struck by this. Not knowing what to say, the king kind of stood there in awed silence, listening to the wisdom from this man who seemed to have nothing, but deep down inside seemed to have absolutely everything that the king wanted. Something that the king realized in that moment that all the jewels and all the gold could not buy. This was the king's experience. And now my question to all of you is, what's yours? What's your moral of the story? What are you taking away from this? Again, my intention with the moral story is to share a story with you that hopefully moves, touches, inspires you, it gets you to take some sort of action to go forward and better your life. And what's really important is what the action is deciding on an action and taking it. What are you going to do? How are you going to implement what you're learning here today to make your life better? I would love for you to read it, leave a comment in the comments below and share it, and then I'll be back on later on to read them